So here we have it, the final build. So instead of showing what I was going to do before, I decided I would start opening these with the completed build so you guys know what I'm actually building. So the final specs on the machine, the final set of parts, we've got a, I believe it's an ASUS X99 motherboard. I think it's just the standard, what do they call this thing? I don't think it's the deluxe or anything. It's just the standard X99. Oh, X99A2. So it's a lower mid-level X99 board. There weren't really a lot of low-end X99 boards, but it's on the mid-range. We've got 24 gigs of RAM. I would do the ultra budget machines with 16, but I do 24 now because a lot of games are starting to push past 16, even past 20 in some cases. We've got an MSI Duke GTX 1080, which is actually the fastest GTX 1080 I've ever tested. I have no idea what case this is, but it is a Lian Li case. It's got Lian Li stuff all over it. It's definitely a Lian Li case. I'm just not entirely certain which one it is. I've never seen it before. We've got a 240 millimeter Thermalright liquid cooler. Absolutely recommend. I've used a bunch of them. They are dirt freaking cheap, and they are just as good. I mean, maybe you could measure down to a % or two on the more expensive ones, but I would argue these are just as good, and most of the big reviewers say the same thing for the most part. I've used a number of them. I'm even using them in my own builds now. In fact, most of this build was one of my own builds for a while. So we've got a 600 watt Thermaltake power supply. You can't see it, but it's here. And then I did a total, kind of see it now, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a full set of RGB fans. So it doesn't have that partially filled look to it. It's a full build. I'm trying to think if there's anything else of relevance on here. No, that's everything. Oh, and then I'll also show you guys. So take a look at the back. So as I do with all my builds, I cable managed the life out of this thing. And then I did end up doing one 3.5. I had some spare. I've got a bunch of spare 3.5 drives sitting around. So I was like, I might as well use them. If I don't use them, they're okay drives. They're small. They're 320s, but they're 7,200 RPM. So they perform well enough to use. So I throw those in there as just a value add for buyers. I usually just label them as a secondary data drive. If somebody wants to store whatever, documents, wallpaper, images, a few videos here and there, I put it in there so people can kind of segment their data. And then we have a 500 gig, a fairly high performance 500 gig Seagate SATA hard drive. And then on the board, we have a 500 gigabyte NVMe M.2 SSD. So, all in all, I would argue that this is a very nice little budget build. I'm probably going to post it for $440. I know some people will try to say, oh, that's not reasonable for an X99. Honestly, the way I do these, I do my builds a very specific way. There are two ways to do pre-owned builds. You can do low-end, nearly new hardware, so like current gen ultra low end, or you can do several generation old ultra high end. Now personally, I prefer option B, and I prefer option B just because personally, I like playing with hardware that used to be really high end and isn't anymore, and you can get it for cheap now. I like that. I like knowing that this used to be a $1,500, $2,000 computer. Whereas if I used entry-level today's parts, I would know that it was never more than a $500 computer. Now, sometimes that means my formerly high-end build is slower. Sometimes it doesn't. The value of the parts the actual market value of the parts isn't entirely based on pure raw performance. There is other things that are affected. X99 boards still tend to hold okay value. Typically, you're not going to get an X99, even if you buy a board chip RAM combo on eBay for cheap, typically you're going to pay somewhere between $120 and $140, $135, something like that, shipped. Sometimes more if it's a more desirable higher end board, sometimes less, but generally 125 to 140, something like that. The GTX 1080, same thing. I like GTX 1080s. They're quantifiable. They're known to be reliable. People know what they're getting. They know what a 1080 is, so I like using them. Some people like the builds my way. Some people like the builds the other way. Some people could care less. It just depends on how you like your builds done. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed another look at how I do system builds. Okay, so we are getting started on today's build. With this one, I'm going to do my preferred method, which is installing our cooling setup first. So with this one, we're going to be doing the fairly standard 240 millimeter AIO. These are cheap enough now that, considering similar performance between a 240 millimeter AIO and a like 120 millimeter based fan. Honestly, I prefer the way that the AIO looks. I think it has more of a modern look that most people want to see in a machine. So since I would have to be using a fairly high-end air cooler, and you can get an air cooler that performs just as well, but these are just so cheap now for these mid-level ones, and I'm even using these in my own builds. Like I've got a few Corsairs left, and just for aesthetics, I'll put those in some of my higher end builds. But to be honest, for the most part, I have pretty much switched over to using these even in my own builds. Actually, this particular build, most of the parts on this came out of my secondary X99 test rig. Originally, I had 2 X99 test rigs, but I did decide that that was a little excessive. So I have switched to having one high-end X9. I kind of actually want to do one high-end X99 and one X299, just because I think X299 is basically the fastest platform I can get that supports SLI. At least, I think X570 might support SLI as well. But I haven't been able to find the boards that I want. So with X299, I can get an ASUS Sage workstation board that has 4 PCI Express X16s. And even if I don't have to have even if I want to run, even if it's okay to run X8 or like X16 X8 or X8 X8, something like that, it still doesn't answer the problem of if I want to do 3 or 4-way SLI, which I am going to eventually do a 4-way, either 980 or 980 Ti. I've got a pair of 980 classified kingpins now that I picked up last night. If I can find 2 more of those, which is somewhat unlikely, I'll do a 4-way 980 Kingpin build. Total insanity. Or if I can't find that, what I'm really watching for is another set of... Ooh, there aren't as many. That's not good. I guess I can... I was kind of hoping there'd be a... Oh, there isn't even a thing. Oh, okay. This doesn't have... So most cases have a thing up here. This doesn't have that. This only has ones right there. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's not quite as hidden as I like. I like a little more hiding than that in the cabling, but it's not a big deal. Kind of a budget build. After this build, I'm not going to be actively seeking out X99 for builds anymore. If I find the right deal, I'll still acquire X99 and I'll still sell X99. But I'm not going to actively seek it out anymore for builds. Let's see here. So we're going to put this right in the top. Small case, but it's actually got... let me get that where you can see it a little better. It's a small case, but it's got quite a bit of options here. This case, I don't even know which case this is. I thought it was just a generic I thought this was just a generic pre-built case, but... And it had a couple of Lian Li fans in it, but I thought, well, somebody just put Lian Li fans in it. But then I realized that actually, oh, that's interesting. Ha! Oh, that's funny. Oh, I put it in wrong. Oh, that's really funny. You can screw this in any position you wanted, actually. That's funny. I tried to put it in the 280 millimeter holes. Didn't realize that was set up so you could do that. It's not supposed to be, I don't think, but it is. Okay, so we want to do this right. Yeah, I guess this is some kind of low-end Lian Li case. I'll have to look it up. Maybe I'll see if I can find it before I do the final video with the completed build in front of me. I have no idea which case this is. It's obviously a comparatively low-end case, but I honestly have no idea. I've never seen this one before, and I didn't know Lian Li made this particular case. So if you're not attaching fans on, on one side of the AIO, it just screws in with normal-sized case fans. Or, I'm sorry, normal-sized case screws. Which is actually a good thing. It makes it, depending on what you're doing, it makes it easy to do these. Okay, so that, I think, is how we want it. So let's take a look. It's going to go just like that when it sits in there, so that'll be nice. Okay, so then we want to do, let's see. So actually, this will be perfect because the fan kit comes with 5, so you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this will fully kit this case out. It's actually kind of cool. That's typically my goal. I know it costs a little bit more to put extra fans in, but I prefer that the cases be fully, I prefer that all of the potential fan mounts, at least to the point where the obvious fan mount locations are populated. I don't like having a bunch of empty, I don't like having a bunch of empty fan positions. Like, probably excessive, but I think it makes the builds look better. And people always ask me, like, how do you get the amounts you do for your systems? And that's, I mean, part of it is this kind of aesthetics. Okay. I see a lot of people that say, oh, well, aesthetics don't make a computer faster, but buyers do care about aesthetics. Like, people care that it looks good. People want it to look good. If they're going to go spend a couple $100 even, I mean, this isn't going to be a super expensive build, but people want the builds to look good. And now with these low-cost case fans, these low-cost RGB fans and liquid coolers and stuff, it's so cheap to make a build look good. Like, why wouldn't you? Okay, and then we're going to do that one. Yeah, I think that one and that one. Yeah, because I think I'm going to put... This is going to be one of those builds where I put a hard drive or two in it just as kind of extra space. So typically on my higher end builds where I do 1 terabyte or larger SSDs, I don't do any hard drive space. But when I do 512 or smaller, I prefer to give buyers at least a little bit of auxiliary space with a hard drive in it. Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to run games off of an SSD. The thing I find actually, so a lot of these newer games say that, oh, they don't support you if you don't have an SSD. But I think the reason for that is because it's a catch-all. So they don't want you to have a hard drive from 2002. Like, most people that have like a 500 gig hard drive in their computer, they are not the 500 gig drives that I'm using that are reasonably modern drives. They're drives from like 2002, 2003, like something ancient that they've carried over from system to system just because they have it. Oh, and here's a mistake you don't want to do. This is an aesthetics thing again, so some people will say, why bother? But you want to make sure that the ring is right in the center of the hole. That's the whole point of using the ring fan, is how it looks with that ring of light. So you want to make sure that that ring of light, at least if you're building a system to sell, like if it's your own personal system, you do what you want. But if you're building a system to sell, you want it to look good. And one way to make sure it looks good is to make sure that that ring of light is fully visible. But anyway, though, so I think a lot of games, they've just whitelisted, oh, you have to have an SSD, just so that they don't have to deal with people that put in, you know, when they put a hard drive in, they put in an ancient, like, 20-year-old drive. Because you can, I mean, a SATA hard drive from, like, 2003 or whatever would work. I mean, there's no reason you can't use it, but it would just be slow as molasses. And so they've said, okay, well, we're just gonna say you can't run an SSD, even though if you have a reasonably decent performance, I'm sorry, you can't run a hard drive, even though if you have a reason. Oh, this is dumb. Oh, look at that. Okay, so only one of these is going to be fully visible. Oh, you know what though? Okay. This doesn't matter. Actually, in this case, it does not matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is because I forgot. This case does not have a glass front panel on it. This case has a metal front panel, so it's not visible. So we're actually going to move the fans, that fan down a little bit lower so that the most possible amount of the ring is visible inside the case. See, now, I've had some people complain on the fact that I don't know these things up front, but I don't do my builds the way you would see like a big YouTuber do their builds. These are not content pieces first and PC builds second. These are exactly the other way around. These are PC builds primarily for buyers first and pieces of YouTube content second. So I don't do like some sort of in-depth research or rehearsal or something to make sure that I do everything right before I do these builds. These builds are the raw, unfiltered, as I did them builds. You know, let's put a zip tie right there because I want those to come out as one. I don't want the whatchamajigger. I don't want the cables kind of snaking all over the place there. Oh, you can see that. Okay. Then, now let's do one more. I might want another one. Depending on how I decide to hide the cables once the build is done, we might want another one here. So this is definitely going to be sub 500. The last one of these I think I did for 380. This one's going to be slightly more expensive, probably like 450, something like that, because that last one I did without all the fancy snazzy extras and stuff, whereas this one is going to have. I'm still trying to determine which the buyer preference is. It seems like there's really there's buyer preference for both. There is buyers who prefer, gosh darn it, where's my, I lost the IO shield. Where did that, oh wait, no, that's not it. Where did it go? I think I didn't put it in yet. Oh, there it is. Always put these in if you can. It's just a good housekeeping thing. I've generally found that if I kind of brush it off as no big deal, buyers generally don't make a big deal out of it. But I think from what I have seen when selling systems, it does seem like there is a slight additional difficulty in selling a system if it does not have the IO shield. I don't know for certain. I don't think I can quantify it, but it does seem to me like, generally speaking, there's an ever so slight increase in difficulty in actually moving a build without the IO shield. What is going on here? Oh, I think this needs this needs smaller sized screws. Hopefully, it's going to be a real pain in the butt if I, I think it needs the smaller ones. Okay. Okay, so it's kind of crazy that we've gotten to the point where X99 is now a budget. I've said it before, but I do like building with X99. For one, like see on this, it fully fills the case, which looks nice. It does look nice when your parts completely fill the case. Like that's just, it's one of those things I referred to earlier as just good housekeeping. Gosh darn it. I always forget to turn my phone on silent when I'm doing videos. Okay. Yeah, if you can fully fill the case, definitely. Fully fill the case. Once I finish it, this is actually going to be a really good looking build. But this board is exactly, like dead on the size of the case. Like dead on. This is another thing. Put all of your case or your board screws in if you can, if it's physically possible. Depending, you'll usually have either 8 or 9 of them on a full ATX board like this. Darn it. And that one is in the corner, which means you gotta be really careful to not cross thread it because your screwdriver's at an angle. Okay, so there's that. So then let's put in our liquid cooler now. Let's see here. Where are my standoffs? Oh, there they are. Okay. So basically this entire build was originally in a Corsair 500D SE. and it was actually originally intended specifically as a build to host my 2 GTX Titan Zs as kind of a long-term test bed. So, because I'm going to be doing a ton of Titan Z content. I'm still working on that. I've put some up already, but I found that, so that's gonna actually look really good. I like the way that curves like that. I was finding that the Titan Z, it ran hot, and because I have 2 of them in SLI, yeah, it's like this. So I need it on the top and the bottom. So the Titan Z runs hot. And so because I'm running them in SLI, I wanted them not to be like bam, bam. Or even, or no, it was like this. There are 3 slots. So I went on that one, and they were right up next to each other. And I ended up just needing a bigger case to make that happen. To give me the space that I wanted between the cards. I've actually got it set up now to where I can put one here and one here because the case is really deep that I put it in. And so, yeah, so I ended up pulling that out of this case and putting that in an old Corsair, an old Corsair 750D case, which is perfect for that type of build. Because the 750D is a fairly modern case as far as features. It just, it's just not optimized for visuals in the way that some of these new cases are. So it doesn't have quite the aesthetics as far as the, oh, whatchamajigger. You know, I'm going to spread this with my finger. And we're going to do this. We're going to do, so I don't make a mess, gosh darn it, we're going to use this bag. I normally don't spread CPU thermal paste, but on these X series chip, these X99 and X299 are fairly large surface area chips, and so I think we're going to be better off spreading this. Okay, I think we got it. Actually, that worked really well. I should do that more often. Okay. And then we'll just flip this inside out so we don't have a mess there. Now just go in the garbage. Okay, so then to do that, we need, where are those two screws? I'd be really annoyed if I will, wait, is that them? No, that's not them. Be really annoyed if I lost the screws to attach that thing. They're probably fairly standard size, so I could probably get away with using something else, but I don't really want to. Well, this is interesting. And we still got to do the fan controller as well. Okay, where did I put those damn things? Let's see if this will take another. Okay, so they are. Oh! I'm an idiot. Now I feel stupid. They're built into the. They're built into the block. Whoopsie. Okay, so I want to put that under there so it's kind of hidden. There we go. Okay. Then I am not lined up here. What is going on? Okay, I think we're good. Boom. Good to go. This is actually going to be a really nice looking build when it's done. Guarantee you, if I get more than like 10 views on this video, which I probably won't because my build videos don't actually seem to get that much interest, I'm sure I'm going to get comments right there on the video. I see it! It's right there! How do you not see it? That the screws are attached to the thing. Okay, so then let's flip it over. So then let's see where we can even mount the controller. These controllers for these aftermarket fan kits are actually getting kind of big. Let's see here. So I don't want it. I kind of like it right there, but then you can't access the fans. I don't think there's enough. Yes, there's enough there's not enough space to put it there. I might have to do, maybe we can do what I did originally. I think we're going to do this. We're going to have to do, you can see where I did it on the other build. We're going to have to do it right on the back plate. And even that is actually right dead even the amount. In fact, I need to find, let's see if I have the panel here. You want to do this before. Is that it? That might be it. Oh, that's an interesting way to do it. They just have screws. That is it. It just notches in. Okay, I think this might work. Okay, yeah, no, that'll work. So that'll stay flat. You want to check that stuff, or then you do a whole build and then you go to put something like that on and you have a problem. And that's a problem you don't really want to have. Okay, so let's put this. Try to line up the adhesive so I get the maximum amount of adhesive on the surface. And normally I would press a little harder on here, but I don't really want to press that hard on the board. We don't need this one because this board doesn't have RGB. Okay, so this will go down here and will eventually connect to the power supply. And I'm just now seeing that this is another one of those wonderful cases that doesn't really have any tie downs to speak of, which is, I mean, I have creative ways of making them if I have to, but I'd rather have them in most cases. Okay, so then put one here. So this is sequential. This is the fan 1 position. Generally, I find with this controller, it's not necessary, though I will say, let's see here. That's something else. If you want to do sequential effects, I think you have to do it. I think you have to do them sequentially, but I think I want to go that route. So I apologize for any... What is that? Oh, that's for the... I was like, what the heck? That's the pump. So let's put that on. Obviously, oh, yeah, we're going to go over here, actually, with that one. Gotcha. Okay. So... see if I can tuck this under there so we don't have to zip tie it. Can we do it? Okay, so that's good. So that'll make that mostly hidden. Bam. Okay, so there's that. And then these are the additional fans. Ooh, and actually I still have these two as well. Now this is the kind of stuff you don't actually have to do. This is just me being absolutely perfectionist about it. This stuff is all going to be invisible. I guess now I've gotten to the point where I'm so used to doing builds in cases that have double-sided glass that my build process kind of just has evolved to take into account double-sided glass. On here. Generally, it's easier just to have a method that works and do the same thing every time, too, so. Okay. Bam. And bam. Okay. Debating whether or not I want to just start leaving this loose. I put a lot of time into managing these cables. Okay, so that's in. So let's do this. Let's see how effectively we can manage all of this. Okay, so that's that. This does not want to go under. Oh, it's because there's a screw right there. Okay. So let's try to, I'm going to try to resort to tucking the cables out of the way in this one more than zip tying. It looks like I'm going to have to do some zip ties though. Okay, so then, let's see here. I wonder if there's any space under this thing. I'm guessing there's not, but I might get lucky and there might be. No, it's all fully. Okay, but we can do this. Let's attach that to there. I think, let's see, so that'll go there. So this allows this controller to actually control any, so this controller can control anything RGB in addition to the fans that it came with. So if you've got like normal RGB fans, this controller can control them. If they've got the standard 3-pin ARGB connector. And this one can actually also connect to your board if your board has RGB control. Which is actually pretty cool. It's one of the disadvantages. Oops, and I'm just realizing you guys probably didn't see. Did you guys see what I did there? Okay, I guess you probably see it all. I should be able to see all that. Okay. One of the previous disadvantages to these cheap fan kits was they were only standalone, so you couldn't interface them with anything else. But now they've gotten to the point where they've got all the same capabilities as something like a Corsair or Cooler Master or, you know, what have you. And so there's that much less reason to actually not use them. Because to be totally honest, one of the biggest reasons not to use these in the past was the lack of control that they gave you. It was more of a feature thing than it was a performance thing. But now that you get the features with them, like there's no good reason not to use them. Okay, so that's that. And then let's do this. Let's put one more there just to keep them in place. kind of just wanted them flat against the side there. There we go. Okay, so we're good. And that pretty much finishes up our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, our fan setup here. I'd like this to stay on there, but if it doesn't, once this is closed, it doesn't actually matter. But this could control another fan if I wanted it to. So it might be nice to have access to that later. Let's put that right there. Or another set of RGB, shall I say. Okay. So, USB, actually, let's do power supply now. So we've got a 600 watt Thermaltake. Oh, is this? Okay, no, it's not. I was gonna say, is this? I thought it was modular for a second. It's like I didn't order a modular. So these Thermaltakes, you'll see them all over Amazon. They're between $35 and like $50, depending on the wattage and model you buy. You'll see some people on online forums telling you, oh, don't use those, they're too cheap, they're gonna be garbage. But the reviews on Amazon seem pretty good on them. I mean, you're gonna get, like, ignore if you get that one random failure. There's gonna be that one random person that's like, oh yeah, I bought it and it killed my computer. Maybe true, maybe not true, but you're gonna have that happen at least once. When you sell thousands of something like this. And the people who have a problem, the way that these online reviews work is that the people who have a problem tend to be more likely to leave a review. Most people that have a good experience, they just don't leave a review because they had a good experience. And so, why leave a review? Like, you had a good experience, the item's working, you don't think about it. So when you have an item where it's got mostly good reviews, anyway, that's a good sign. And these do, and I've been using these for, I don't know, a year or two now. I haven't had any issue with them. I'm sure someone will call me and say there's failed sooner or later, but so far I haven't had a problem. Okay, so let's try to, let's see here. Okay, so let's run this first. Not a huge fan of all those separate cables, but whatever. That's going to go down there. There it is. Okay, right there. Generally speaking, ASUS boards typically put their 24-pin up closer to the top versus the middle or bottom. It's not always the case, but it's often the case. I'm not a huge fan of how much flex that has. Okay, so then it looks like it's got just enough. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's got one right there. So it's got just enough to kind of run it down the center there. So this is going to be one of those ones where once I have it the way I want it, I'm going to have to, because of the lack of tie-down points, I'm probably going to have to use the strap cables to other cables technique, most likely. Let's see here. It's kind of a weird way they did this with this raised edge around the CPU tray area. I don't know if I've seen them do that before. Oh yeah, there's another Lian Li thing. So it's definitely Lian Li. I'm going to have to look this up because I'm actually really curious which case this is now. Okay. You guys are going to see, though, I mean, even without a bunch of fancy features, you can still make a clean build that looks good. Like, this is going to look good when it's done. Damn, we're already at 44 minutes. I cannot seem to do these builds faster than like an hour and a half for the full build. Like, it just seems to always take, by the time I get the parts and everything ready to go, it seems like, oh yeah, we got to do that. Don't want to forget our motherboard 8 pin. I'm trying to think where where is it? It's in the, looks like it's in the middle, so probably go this one. So we'll run it out through this one. Luckily, there's enough space here. The way they did the... I'll be honest, the way they did the interior space utilization is actually quite good for a cheap case. It's got space in places I wouldn't expect for an obviously cheap case. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. So then... enough to go that way? Yeah, it is, actually. I want to go that way, though. I'm trying to decide how I want to run this. I'm thinking we're going to do the... Let's do this. So let's put one there. I guess technically this build's almost done though, so we might be at a shorter build on this one. Okay, actually, you know what we're going to do? We are going to put, sometimes you got to cut one and switch it for something else. Okay, we're going to put one there. Bam, okay. So that'll hold both of those. Okay, there's that. Yeah, this is why I think it's funny when I see these YouTubers that are like, oh, you need all this fancy stuff for cable management and everything. I'm like, not really. Not if you know what you're doing. Okay. So that's that. And then, yes, we might have to, I might have to do that again. Darn it. Oops. I run them one item at a time, so I don't really think about it. Okay. Let's put our GPU in and see how that fits up. So that'll go down that way. And actually, you know what? Oh, actually, no. I was going to say, I was going to have to put my SSD in, but actually, we don't have to do that yet. Oh, where did that GPU go? There it is. This is actually, interestingly enough, as comparatively bland as it looks. There's no RGB, there's no lights, no nothing, but this MSI Duke is the fastest GTX 1080 non-TI that I have tested so far. It's actually a little bit faster even than like the Strix versions. It actually, if I remember right, when I ran it on 3D Mark, I believe it actually scored like noticeably faster than the other 1080s that I've tested, which is kind of impressive. I didn't expect it. It was, when I first ran it, I had to run it twice because I was like, wait, is that fast? This is the first one of this particular version that I've ever had, so I wasn't familiar with the model. Okay, so I think we're going to run there. Oops. Well, interesting, and it only requires a 6 and an 8 as well. I kind of would have expected 2 8s. Just for how fast it is? Yeah, I kind of expected 2 8s. I actually was originally planning on keeping this one, but I've got 4 1080 Ti's, and I'm still trying to decide if I really need to retain a 1080 non-Ti. But if I do, because I have a matching pair of the Strix cards, if I do retain a 1080 non-Ti, I'm probably leaning towards an ROG Strix, just because I had kind of decided, so for each generation of cards, because I collect cards, and I kind of decided that for each generation of cards, I'd kind of decide which design I really liked, and then use that. And in this case, the one that I really like for 10 series and 20 series is the Strix OC models. I've got a 2080 Ti Strix. I've got 2 1080 Ti Strix. I've got, I guess I'm still going to need to get my hands on you know, I'd kind of like to get my hands on a pair of 6 gig Strix 1060s. I don't know if they're SLI, though. I think they are, if I remember right. I don't remember specifically looking, so I can't remember if they had the SLI fingers on them or not. Okay, come on, guys. For a cheap case, come on. It looks pretty good. So then we just got to do USB 3, which I'm going to guess is right there. It might be on the bottom, but I think it's right. I think this had 2 of them, actually. Yeah, it's got one there. And I don't really like, yeah, with the way they have that positioned, I don't really like the idea of running a 3.0 front panel cable in that location. I really prefer this location, so, and I think I'm going to zip tie it to the, well, maybe. I'm trying to decide if I want to zip tie it to the PCIe cable or not. With how fragile those are, I don't necessarily want somebody to unplug that and then damage that, so I think I'll leave it separate. But let's see here. So we want to get it out of the way, though. And I really wish they made USB 3 cables a little bit differently than they do. I know they can. Like, they don't have to be these hard, rigid cables. Like, it is possible to do it without doing it that way, and I wish they would. Let's see. So I'm probably going to run... You know what? We could just tie these. Let's do that. Actually, yeah. Okay. That makes me happy. So we run it like that. Because we want to have as little, on USB 3, you want to have as little creasing on the cable as possible. Like, you want it to run, it's kind of like the, like if you've seen how they've talked about how you don't want to bend the cables on those new 12-volt high power plugs for like the 4090. Same thing with these. You want to avoid, oops, gosh darn it. You want to avoid bending them if you can. Okay. So let's do that. Yeah, I wonder if I can... do that. You know what? Let's do that. Even... No, I don't want to go that much. I won't go too ham on it here. Okay, so that does that. And then we can actually... I'm thinking put in a zip tie that'll then let us... I'm thinking put in a zip tie or two here, and that'll let us wedge that underneath there. We need just a little bit more thickness to it. Okay. Yeah, just what I wanted. So that wedges that under there. Let's actually do one more. Let's do one up here as well, so I can do the same thing. That actually makes it so these wedge perfectly under there. And the tabs to hold this case in place lock into these screws, so nothing, usually on most cases, it's got something that locks in down here, and you wouldn't be able to get away with doing this without getting a cable damaged. But in this case, it doesn't do that, so we can get away with it. Okay, and then we'll add, just to hold this in place, just a loose zip tie right there. Actually, we can zip tie that to that. Okay, so we are back. Right where I left off, I had a battery unexpectedly go out. I wasn't paying attention. Seemed to give out 45 minutes to an hour of continuous video recording out of one of them. So I did take the opportunity to do a little bit of mid-build cleanup, though, so we kind of cleaned up some of the garbage. Okay, so I did not mean to do that. Blocked the... You'd run the cables right there. Oopsie. It's okay. It's not a big deal. What is going on here, though? That is a deal. There we go. Okay, so we've got two things with this. We've got front panel audio, which is going to go over here. Almost every board now has standardized to front panel audio being in the back corner here. That's almost standard now. Every rare so often I'll see a board with it somewhere else. But yeah, right where I thought. But pretty much every board now puts it in the same place. Like, at least 99 out of 100. Let's put it that way. It's pretty standard now. You used to see it all over the place, but now it's I'm pretty much always right there. So, got that. And then, I guess I probably should have run it. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking redo that and run it right there, just to keep it out of the way. Trying to see if my... Yeah, you can see everything. Do not be me. Do not become picky as I am with these builds. This is the reason why these builds take an hour and a half to 2 hours a piece, is because of all of this stupid little stuff that I do. Like, you don't have to do all of this stuff, but if you do, and you're selling systems, your buyers might thank you. Okay, so let's do... Thinking I'm going to tuck that under there. So let's run this and let's see, what do I got? Okay, yeah, so it looks like I only have one of each, which is good. So what we're going to do is zip tie these, and then we'll kind of tuck them under there if I can. We might not be able to, but I guess we could just do this. Let's do this. Let's tuck it under there. Oh, you can tuck it under. Okay, so I'm thinking... that. And then can I do another one right here? Let's see if we can do it. Ooh, we can. Look at that. Okay, and then that means I could probably do another one. Okay, so you would go there. Let's see here. We put another one there. And that one there. Yes. Okay, so that's basically fully hidden. Okay, bam, fully hidden. And then we're going to need one of these. So we'll probably do this. Let's... okay, so we'll put a zip tie on that. Ugh. And then we just got to run. So this is the cable for the, is that right? Yeah, that's right. This is the cable for the fan controller. Okay, so that's on. And then we've got two, now this isn't entirely necessary, but I do prefer to leave these usable, if possible. Okay, yeah, there's that. Let's screw those down. I don't think I'm going to use any 2.5s. I'm not positive yet, but I don't think I'm planning on it. Okay, so those are there. And then just need our power button, which should be somewhere around there, I'm guessing. Let's see here. Now, this one's actually going to be really easy. All we have is a power switch and a power LED. So let's see what we got. Oh yeah, right where I wanted it to be. Okay, so then we do... boom. Wait, where is it? I think it's this. Power plus. Power minus. And this is a little less than completely clear. Okay, I guess if I did it right, everything will work when we plug it in. Actually, let's also put our memory in. So, I've started doing the budget builds, except the ultra budget, but the standard budget, like the 350 to like 450, that kind of price range, I've started doing those with 16 gigs of RAM. Generally speaking, 24 gigs of RAM, not 16 gigs, because I'm starting to see more and more often situations where they go into like 20, 22 gigs of RAM, something like that, even on these lower end builds where we're running at lower graphics settings. I think I ran, what's that game? Hogwarts Legacy last night on a build lower end than this, and it was running like 20 gigs of RAM or something. I was like, what the heck? Like, I would expect it on a higher end build, but not so much on a build like this. But apparently they are using a lot more system RAM than they used to. I actually really like these. These allow you to kind of mold the thing the way you want and then hold it in place. I'm kind of annoyed higher end ones don't usually have that. Okay, so we should be able to just turn the sucker on. So, okay, power's on. Nope, wrong one. Okay, so which is it? Is it this one? Let's see here. Okay, that did it. Did that even turn, did that turn on our, it did turn on our power light, so I think we're good. You can kind of see everything's on. Let's see what it does. That's a good sign. The LED, you can't, well, no, I don't think you can see it in the video, but the status indicator is giving us good activity, so I think it's good. Yep. Single press of the power button to turn it off is a good indicator that you are not frozen. If they freeze, typically what will happen is you'll have to press and hold the power button. You've probably had to do that before. That is typically the reason for having to do that, is because you've got something wrong and it's frozen just before the BIOS. But okay, so the build is effectively complete. So I will be back in a few minutes with a completed build, with all of the panels and stuff assembled, and just kind of show you guys what it looks like with it complete. So stay tuned for a little bit more.